Most people think the danger of gambling is losing money, but the real danger is what it does to your sense of reality. Because once your brain believes I can get it back, money stops behaving like money. And that's when small decisions turn into life-size damage. Welcome back to The Passive Path. I'm your host, and today we're talking about why casinos and betting apps are designed to be unbeatable, and why the biggest losses often happen after a win. To help us think clearly, I'm joined by a fictional guest, an anonymous voice who represents the ideas we're discussing today. No credentials, no guru stuff, just a calm walk through the mechanics and the psychology.
Glad to be here. And yes, I'm fictional on purpose because the point isn't who I am. It's how the system works and how a normal person can get pulled into it without realizing.
Let's start with the simple claim. You can't beat the house. People hear it, nod, and still try.
Right. Because can't beat the house sounds like a slogan. Nah. Here's the core. Most casino games have a house edge. It's not always huge, but it's consistent. Over enough bets, that edge turns into guaranteed profit for the house. Even in games people call fair, there's usually a fee built in, like a small percentage shaved off every hand or every outcome. You can have short-term luck, but the long-term expectation is negative.
So if the expectation is negative, why do wins feel so convincing?
Because your brain doesn't experience expected value, it experiences stories. A win feels like proof, it feels like insight, it feels like you did something right. Even if it was randomness, and the moment you feel I figured it out, you stop treating it like entertainment and start treating it like a strategy. Often, yes, the first loss is honest. The first win is persuasive, especially if the win is big relative to your normal income. If you earn, say, a modest salary and you win in one night, what normally takes months to save, your value system gets distorted.
Distorted how? That sounds like the beginning of a spiral.
It often is. And the spiral isn't just, I lost money. It's I lost the ability to evaluate money. That's a deeper problem.
Give me a concrete story, not for drama, just to make it real.
Sure. Imagine a guy, call him Min, normal life, stable job. Then he tries sports betting. First time, he bets what feels like a lot to him. And he wins a huge amount. Not a little win. A shocking win. Something that makes him feel chosen by the universe. Within a short window, he stacks more winnings. And now he starts believing this is a path, not a fluke.
So he starts reorganizing his life around it.
Exactly. He quits his job because why work for slow money when fast money exists? Then the variance hits. A few losses, and he starts chasing. Not because he's greedy, but because his brain has been trained to believe the money is recoverable. He thinks, I already proved I can win, so I just need to get back to that state.
That's the illusion. Back to that state.
Yes, and it's tricky because it's not completely irrational in the short term. You really can win again. That's what keeps people trapped. But the more you play, the more the house edge and variance combine to produce a predictable outcome. You give money back, and then you give more.
How does it jump from I lost to I'm ruined?
Because the losses change your behavior. If you lose a little, you can stay disciplined. If you lose a lot, discipline becomes emotionally expensive. No, the goal isn't enjoy the game. It's undo the pain. That's when people increase bet sizes. They stop following any limits, and they start borrowing.
Borrowing is the part that scares me most.
Borrowing is where the story changes from gambling to financial collapse, because now you're not just risking your money, you're risking future income, relationships, credit, and stability, and interest turns the clock into an enemy. You're not only chasing losses, you're chasing time.
In Min's case, what happens next?
He borrows from family, from a bank, then from high-interest lenders, and because he's still anchored to the memory of that early big win, he believes one more win can clean everything up. He might even think, in a very reasonable way, if I can just win X, I'll stop forever.
That sentence is a trap.
It's one of the most common traps, because I'll stop after I win assumes you can choose the exit point. But casinos are designed so that you don't control the exit point. The system controls.
Let's zoom out. If casinos are so unbeatable, why do they let people win at all?
Because they don't need you to lose every time. They need you to keep playing. A casino doesn't fear a player winning tonight. It fears a player not returning tomorrow. Short-term wins are marketing. They're emotional credit. They keep hope alive.
That's brutal, but it makes sense. So the product isn't the game. The product is your continued participation.
Exactly. And they're very good at increasing participation because they understand human psychology.
Let's go there. What's the psychological engine behind this?
Two big forces, greed and control. Greed sounds insulting, but I don't mean it morally. I mean it as a natural human appetite for more, for relief, for shortcuts. And control as the illusion that you can predict or influence randomness. Put those together, and you get a person who thinks, if I'm smart, I can win.
Even when the math says otherwise.
Even then, because the brain doesn't accept math emotionally, it accepts patterns. People see streaks. They see systems. They see meaning in noise. And some games make this worse by appearing structured. Players feel like outcomes have rules. They can decode even if the edge is still against them.
So the feeling of control is the hook.
Yes, the feeling of control is the hook. The loss is the line. The chase is the sinker.
Now I want to talk about different kinds of gamblers because people assume it's always desperate people.
That's an important point. It's not just desperation. There are at least a few common profiles. One is the thrill seeker, usually someone who can afford to lose at least at first. They play big, fast, and treat it like an adrenaline sport. They might walk in, place huge bets, and finish in minutes. Either they're up massively or they're down massively. They're paying for intensity.
So it's entertainment until it isn't.
Right. And even if they can afford losses, the habit can still warp them. Because when you use money as adrenaline, normal life starts feeling flat. Another profile is the dependent gambler. This person may start modestly, even disciplined. They win a bit, they repeat, they feel stable. But once they hit a big loss threshold, they change. They become urgent. They start making reckless bets to recover the previous self-image. I'm a winner.
The identity flips.
Yes, gambling becomes identity maintenance. And then there's a third profile people don't talk about much. The bored, wealthy gambler. Someone who has money, status, options, but no meaning. They don't even gamble for joy. They gamble because it's something that produces feeling. When you have too much and you're numb, risk can become the last thing that feels real.
That's dark in a quiet way.
It is, and it shows that money alone doesn't protect you from addiction. Sometimes it enables it.
So those are internal factors. What about external design? How the environment pulls you in?
Casinos are ecosystems. They don't just offer games. They offer hospitality, status, and convenience. They give you memberships, points, free rooms, free rides, special service. They make you feel valued. And for high rollers, they remove friction completely. Transportation, private rooms, hosts who treat you like royalty.
It's a loyalty program for losing.
Exactly. And there's another layer, credit. In many gambling ecosystems, once you appear valuable, someone offers you money to keep playing. Not because they like you, because they understand the math and the psychology. If you keep playing, probability will eventually do its job.
So even if you run out of cash, the system can keep you in the chair.
Yes. And online platforms can do it even more efficiently. They can keep you playing without travel, without social cost, without anyone seeing. That privacy is dangerous because shame usually slows people down. When no one can see you, there's less friction.
Let's talk about chasing. People say it casually, but it's the core behavior.
Chasing is when the goal stops being win and becomes a race. You're not pursuing profit, you're pursuing emotional relief. A loss creates a psychological debt, and the gambler believes the only way to repay it is to gamble more.
That sounds like the opposite of investing.
It is. Investing is. Define risk, accept uncertainty, stay consistent. Let time do the work. Chasing is. Increase risk when you're losing. Demand immediate recovery. Let emotion drive size and timing. It's like taking the worst instincts humans have around money and giving them a casino-shaped steering wheel.
The transcript you're echoing described phases like a progression. Can you lay out a clear progression without making it melodramatic?
Yes, think of it as stages. Stage 1 is cautious entry, small bets, just for fun, still in control. Stage 2 is the confident shift. A meaningful win happens or a series of lucky recoveries. The person starts believing skill is involved. Stage 3 is escalation. Bet sizes increase. Time increases. The person begins chasing losses, not seeking entertainment. Stage 4 is collapse. Money runs out, borrowing starts, relationships break. The person may still believe one win can fix everything, but the damage is already structural.
The painful part is that stage 2 can look like success. If you had to boil it down to one sentence, what's the lie that keeps the machine running?
Still can get even. The belief is the engine. It's simple, emotional, and incredibly expensive.
Let's put some numbers to it without turning this into a math lecture.
Sure, here's an easy framing. If a game takes a small percentage on average, it doesn't need to take it from you in a neat, visible way. It takes it through repetition. Even if you have many neutral sessions, wins and losses that cancel out, small negative expectation accumulates. Over time, the fee becomes real money. And if you play longer, bet larger, or chase, you accelerate the transfer.
So the more you work at it, the worse the outcome gets.
Often, yes, because effort increases exposure. That's the irony. Trying harder at a negative expectation game increases the certainty of losing.
This is the passive path, so I want to connect it to the bigger life system, building wealth, building stability.
That's a good one. Wealth is built by controlling downside, protecting your engine, and using time as an ally. Gambling flips all three. It increases downside, attacks your engine, your income, your attention, your relationships, and makes time your enemy through debt and urgency.
So the cost isn't just the money lost at the table.
Right. It's the opportunity cost. The investments you didn't make, the skills you didn't build, the career you destabilized, the trust you burned, and maybe most importantly, the mental model you destroy.
Explain mental model.
Your mental model is how you decide. A healthy financial model says slow gains are real, risk is bounded, luck is not a plan, consistency wins. Gambling teaches the opposite. Big swings are normal, luck is the plan, and urgency is the truth. Once that model infects someone, it can bleed into other decisions, trading, business, relationships, even self-worth.
This is where people often say, okay, but what about gambling as entertainment? So what are practical guardrails?
A few simple ones. 1. A hard entertainment budget that you can lose completely without borrowing, without resentment, without needing a recovery plan. 2. Time limits. Because time is exposure. 3. Never use credit. Not a credit card. Not a loan. Not just this once. If the money isn't already yours and already allocated, you're not gambling. You're leveraging. 4. Avoid gambling when you're emotionally vulnerable, stressed, lonely, angry, bored. Those states are gasoline.
What about people who already feel they're slipping?
Then the strategy shifts from guardrails to exits. First, remove access, self-exclusion programs, blocking apps, cutting accounts, removing payment methods. Second, remove secrecy. Tell one trustworthy person. Shame grows in silence, but recovery grows in daylight. Third, put friction between you and money. Separate accounts. Give someone else temporary control if needed. Cancel credit lines. And fourth, professional support. Not because you're weak, because the system is engineered to defeat individual willpower.
That's an important reframing. It's not a fair fight.
It's not. And that's why just be disciplined often fails. Discipline helps, but environment beats discipline when the environment is optimized.
Let's revisit men for a second. In stories like that, there's often a turning point.
That in the turning point is not a new insight, it's a new structure. For example, the person finally accepts they can't safely touch the activity at all. Not, I'll do it moderately. More like, this isn't for me. Then they build systems, handing over finances temporarily, removing credit, creating a tight allowance, rebuilding routine, getting back to work. And the recovery is slow because the brain has to relearn the value of money as time and effort.
That last part matters. Relearning value.
Yes, Because if your brain still believes fast money is normal, everything else feels pointless. So recovery is partly financial, but also psychological. You have to rebuild patience.
If someone listening has never gambled, what's the takeaway?
Don't treat gambling as a money activity. Treat it as a risk product sold by a business. If you ever choose to engage, do it like buying a movie ticket, not like making an investment. And be cautious with anything that offers quick winnings with a repeated exposure. That structure shows up in many places: casino games, sports betting, certain forms of speculative trading.
If someone is already gambling a bit, what's the early warning sign?
When the emotional narrative changes, if you start saying things like, I can fix this, I deserve a win, I almost had it, I just need one good night, those are not entertainment thoughts. Those are chase thoughts.
And chase thoughts are expensive.
They're the most expensive thoughts in the building.
All right, I want to close with a simple summary. The passive path style: clear, calm, usable. 1. Casinos and betting apps are not neutral games. They're engineered businesses with built-in edge. 2. The most dangerous moment is often a big early win because it rewires how money feels. 3. Chasing isn't about greed. It's about pain relief, and it leads to bigger bets, borrowing, and collapse. 4. If you want to stay safe, treat gambling like entertainment with a fixed budget, fixed time, and zero credit. If you feel it pulling you, increase friction, reduce access, and bring someone into the loop. Anything you want to add before we go?
Just this. Not gambling is a valid financial skill. It's not boring. It's protective. Walking away from negative expectation games is one of the cleanest ways to keep your life stable and your wealth building engine intact. Thanks for having me. And to anyone listening, take care of your future self.
That's it for today. This is the passive path. Keep it calm, keep it honest, and protect the engine. See you next time.